The voice was a shard of ice in my ear, precise and cold, scraping right against my eardrum. Leo, we need to talk. My eyes shot open. The blinding glare of a crystal chandelier sent a wave of dizziness through me. And then I saw her, Chloe Davis, my wife. Her face was, as always, flawless. She stood there in a silk robe that hugged her body in all the right places, her long hair falling loose around her shoulders. But her eyes, those beautiful almond-shaped eyes, were like two chips of ancient glacier, utterly devoid of warmth. But wasn't I dead? The last thing I remembered was a blur of chrome, an out-of-control semi, the shriek of air brakes, a world turning crimson. I'd shove a little girl out of the way, and the truck had sent me flying. In my last moment of consciousness, I had only one thought. Chloe, what's going to happen to my wife? We've been married for 3 years. Our life together, a carefully choreographed ballet of polite indifference. Everyone said I'd won the lottery, a nobody who'd latched onto a golden ticket through an old family arrangement between the Millers and the DeVises. I was a cocktail of pride and insecurity, hiding behind a mask of cool detachment. She'd responded in kind, meeting my coldness with her own impenetrable frost. It was only on my deathbed, through a friend's tearful confession, that I learned the truth. While I was busy nursing my wounded ego, Chloe had been my silent guardian, deflecting countless attacks, both personal and professional, paving my way without me ever knowing. The woman who always wore a mask of ice had loved me with the heat of a buried volcano. She just never said a word. And I died owing her an "I love you" and 1,000 nights of warmth I'd selfishly withheld. Leo, are you even listening? Chloe's voice had an edge of impatience now. I looked around. Our bedroom, the penthouse apartment she'd bought. The calendar on the wall displayed a date that made my heart stop. 3 years ago, our first wedding anniversary. I was back, reborn on the very day the real tragedy began. In my first life, she'd used that exact same tone. Assuming she was about to ask for a divorce, let my pathetic pride take over. I'd hurled 100 cruel words at her, words that shattered the last fragile threads holding us together. From that day on, the chasm between us became irreparable. But now I knew the truth. A tidal wave of regret and ecstatic joy crashed over me. I looked at her, my lips parting, but the words were lodged in my throat. And that's when I saw it, the impossible thing. Floating beside Chloe was a translucent, softly glowing journal. The cover read, in elegant script, Chloe's private journal. I blinked, convinced I was hallucinating, a side effect of cheating death. But the journal just hovered there, crisp and clear, visible only to me. Chloe saw me staring, my silence only making her frown deepen. At the same moment, the journal flipped open on its own, and lines of neat handwriting appeared on the page. It's our first anniversary. Did he forget? I specifically wore this robe this morning, the one he gave me last year. I don't think he even noticed. Whatever. He probably doesn't care. This marriage was just a contract after all. But still, it kind of hurts. I guess the cake I ordered won't be making an appearance. Just say it, Chloe. Stick to the script. Ask him about his plans for our future. At least keep the peace. Don't let him see how disappointed you are. I stared at the words in the journal, then at the glacial mask on Chloe's face. A profound sense of absurdity and a sharp, painful ache flooded my chest. So this was what was going on beneath the surface. She wasn't about to ask for a divorce. She was waiting, hoping I'd remember our anniversary. She wasn't indifferent. She was just a master of hiding it. In my last life, I was a first-class, grade-A bastard. Leo, Chloe's voice broke through my thoughts, a barely perceptible tremor in it. I saw a new line appear in the journal. Why is he looking at me like that? His eyes are so strange. Is he actually going to ask for a divorce? My heart is pounding. Calm down, Chloe. You're the CEO of Davis Holdings. This is nothing. It's not nothing. I blurted out, the words escaping before I could stop them. Chloe froze. The journal instantly refreshed. What did he just say? What's not nothing? I clear my throat, forcing down the storm inside me. My gaze traveled from her face, a carefully constructed portrait of calm, down to her hand, where her fingers were trembling ever so slightly. Then I reached out. As she watched, stunned, I gently took her hand in mine. Her skin was cool to the touch. I mean, our first anniversary, I said, looking her straight in the eye. That's a big deal. How could I possibly forget? I squeezed her hand. Happy anniversary, honey. I felt her entire body go rigid. The journal, visible only to me, exploded as if someone had dropped a bomb on it. The pages flipped frantically. He called me. Honey. He remembered. And he called me honey. Oh my God, is my face red? No, be cool, Chloe. You are an Ice Queen CEO. Do not break character. But his hand is so warm. Seeing her completely placid exterior while her mind was a Category 5 hurricane of emotion, I couldn't stop a low laugh from escaping my lips. A second chance at life, complete with my wife's instruction manual. Not bad at all. My laughter seemed to snap Chloe out her trance. She snatched her hand back, turning her head away, but I could see the tips of her ears glowing a suspicious shade of pink. Who's your honey? Speak properly. Her voice was still cool, but the sharp, cutting edge was gone, replaced by a flustered note she couldn't quite hide. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the journal. Or what did I just say? So embarrassing. Does he think I'm weird now? Still, he really did remember. Does that mean I can bring out the cake? No, too eager. What if he just said it to be nice? I'll look like an idiot. Wait. Observe. Watching this woman, so completely at odds with her own thoughts, I suddenly found that the intimidating Ice Queen CEO who used to suffocate me was actually kind of adorable. I suppressed a grin and sighed with theatrical gravity. I see you still don't trust me. Chloe turned back, looking at me with confusion. The journal. Trust him about what? Did he plan a surprise? Oh God, how should I react? Do I gasp and jump up and down, or give a dignified nod? I stood up without answering and walked toward the kitchen. Chloe's eyes followed my every move. I opened a refrigerator and saw it immediately. A cake box tucked away in the back corner, bearing the logo of her favorite bakery downtown. In my past life, this cake rotted in the fridge, untouched. I took it out, set it on the dining table, and turned to face her. She was standing there, frozen in place, her beautiful eyes wide with shock. The journal had devolved into a stream of exclamation points. How did he know the cake was there? I hid it so well. How did he find it? Is he psychic? When did he see it? I was so careful when I brought it home this afternoon, and he was in his study the whole time. It's over. He knows everything. He can read my mind. I fought back a laugh, putting on my best poker face, giving her a look that said, I see right through your little games. Aren't you going to invite me to have slice? My dear, honey, I put a little extra weight on the last word. Chloe's face went crimson, a blush that spread from her cheeks all the way down her neck. She stalked over, snatched the cake from my hands, and started fumbling with the packaging, muttering under her breath. Who said this was for you? I can't just want some cake for myself. The journal. I'm so happy. He really wants to celebrate with me. The cake looks so pretty. It's the Earl Grey lavender flavor I love. Will he like it? What if he doesn't like sweets? I pulled out a chair, sat down, and picked up a fork. I cut a slice with practiced ease and took a bite. I said, looking at her seriously, my favorite flavor. The truth was, I didn't have much of a sweet tooth. But I loved her. Chloe just stared, completely dumbfounded. The journal. He likes Earl Grey lavender too? We have the same taste. Is this what they call being on the same wavelength? My heart is going to beat out of my chest. Chloe, get together. Channel the negotiator who closes multi-million-dollar deals. She took a deep breath, sat down across from me, and picked up her own fork. She took a delicate bite, her movements graceful but noticeably faster than usual. It's fine, she said, her review concise. I watched her for a moment, then said her name. Chloe. HM. She looked up, a tiny smudge of frosting on the corner of her lip she hadn't noticed. I think the way we've been living. It's not working, I said slowly. Starting today, let's try something different. What do you say? The journal. Something different? What does he mean? Is he finally going to try to build a real life with me? How do I answer? If I say yes too quickly, I'll seem desperate. If I say no, he might give up. Got it. Ask for clarification first. As if on cue, Chloe put her fork down, dabbed her lips with a napkin, and slipped back in her CEO persona. What not working are you referring to? And what something different did you have in mind? Instead of answering, I stood up, walked around the table to her side, and leaned down. I could hear her breath hitch as I got closer. I reached out, gently wiped the smudge of frosting from her lip with my thumb, and then brought it to my own mouth. Sweet, I said. Boom. I could practically hear the servers in her brain crashing. The journal dissolved into gibberish. Hee. Help. Chloe, where is your composure? Your dignity? How are you letting a little thing like this completely short-circuit you? But, he looked so handsome just now. Seeing her face go from bright red to practically steaming, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. What I mean is, I said, straightening up and taking a step back to give her room to breathe, more moments like this. From now on. Okay. Chloe kept her head down, so I couldn't see her expression, only her knuckles, while she gripped her fork. After a few long seconds, a sound quieter than a whisper reached my ears. Okay. The next morning, the ringing of my phone pulled me from a deep sleep. I opened my eyes. The space next to me was empty, though the faint, cool scent of her perfume lingered on the pillows. Chloe was always an early riser. I picked up the phone. The caller ID read, Catherine Davis. My mother-in-law. My stomach clenched. In my last life, this was the call. Chloe's mother, inviting us to the Davis family estate for dinner. It was framed as a family gathering, but it was an ambush. At that dinner, Chloe's worthless cousin, Caleb Vance, publicly humiliated me, calling me a useless freeloader. My pride, fragile as glass, had shattered. I'd gotten into a screaming match with him, stormed out, and left Chloe trapped in the middle, forced to choose between her family and her husband. It was one of the key events that sent our marriage into a nosedive. I took a deep breath and answered, Hi, Mom. There was a distinct pause on the other end, as if she was surprised by the title. I'd always called her Mrs. Davis before. Leo, dear. Catherine's voice was warmer than I remembered. Is Chloe there with you? She just left for the office. Is everything okay? Oh, it's nothing serious. Your father-in-law just got back from his trip to Asia, and we wanted to have you both over for dinner tonight. Just a family thing. Of course, Mom. We'll be there on time, I said without a moment's hesitation. This time, I wasn't going to let Chloe down. After hanging up, I got dressed. As I stepped out of the bedroom, I saw Chloe coming down from her home office upstairs. She was already in a sharp power suit, her hair pulled back in an elegant twist. The formidable CEO was back. My mother called you? She asked, adjusting her cuffs, her tone neutral. Yeah, she wants us over for dinner tonight. If you don't want to go. I want to go. I cut her off. I walked over to her and, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, straightened her slightly crooked collar. Our parents are asking us over. Of course we'll go. My fingertips brushed against the skin of her neck. Her body went still again. I saw the journal flicker into existence beside her. He called my parents our parents. He just fixed my collar. It felt so natural, not like he was putting on a show. We're going to the estate tonight. Caleb will definitely give him a hard time. I need to think of a way to stop him from being humiliated like last time. So, she was worried about me. In a last life, she'd done the same thing. She seemed cold, but she defended me at every turn during that dinner. I've just been too blinded by rage to see it. Don't worry, I said softly, meeting her gaze. I won't let you down tonight. Chloe's eyes flickered for a second. She didn't say anything, just gave a slight nod and turned to leave. Wait, I called out. She looked back. I stepped forward, opened my arms, and pulled her into a proper hug. Drive safe, I whispered in her ear. Chloe was completely rigid in my arms, like a beautiful, perfect statue. The journal, however, was practically vibrating with excitement. He hugged me. Is this our first ever morning hug? He smells so good, like clean mint and warm skin. Okay, Chloe, you're going to be late. But I just want to stay here for another minute. After a few seconds, she made a small sound of assent, then practically wriggled out of my embrace and hurried out the door. I watched her hasty retreat, a wide smile spreading across my face. That evening, at the Davis family estate in Lake Forest, when Chloe and I arrived, the grand living room was already filled with people. The Davis clan was large, with numerous relatives from various branches of the family tree. My eyes immediately found Caleb Vance, lounging on a leather sofa, one leg crossed over the other, a smug look on his face. The moment he saw me, a flicker of contempt crossed his features. Well, look who it is, he drawled, his voice oozing sarcasm. Our very own man of leisure. What's the big project these days, Miller? Figuring out new ways to keep my cousin happy at home. The atmosphere in the room instantly tensed. A few of the relatives stifled smirks, shooting glances my way. Chloe's expression turned to ice. She was about to speak, but I put a hand on her arm, giving her a reassuring squeeze before turning to Caleb with a pleasant smile. Keeping Chloe happy is my most important job, Caleb. You don't have to worry about that, I said, my tone mild, as if I hadn't caught the insult. As for projects, I've been looking into a few things, trying to find a way to take some of the pressure off Chloe. Caleb stared at me, nonplussed. He'd expected the old Leo, the one who would explode at the slightest provocation. The journal beside me refreshed. He didn't get angry. He just said he wants to take pressure off me. Does he mean it? His hand is on mine. It feels so strong. I feel safe. A new scheme lit up Caleb's eyes. He picked up a file from the coffee table and tossed it down. Perfect timing. Since you're so eager to help, take a look at this. It's a new venture I'm heading up. We're partnering with Vanguard Dynamics. Once this deal is signed, it'll double the Davis market share, easy. He puffed out his chest. Consider it a learning opportunity. Your family, after all. I glanced at the file. Vanguard Dynamics. A jolt went through me. This was it. This was the project. In my last life, this was the deal that nearly bankrupted the family. Caleb, desperate to prove himself, had poured almost all of the company's liquid capital into it, only to fall into a brilliantly disguised contractual trap set by Vanguard. Chloe had worked herself into exhaustion, pulling all-nighters for weeks to fix his catastrophic mistake. Caleb was nothing more than a pawn they'd used and discarded. I picked up the flawless-looking contract, my expression hardening. Caleb Vance, Vanguard Dynamics. The debt you owe my wife and me from our last life will be repaid in this one. With interest. What's the matter, Miller? Can't make sense of it. Caleb jeered when I didn't speak. This is $100 million deal. There are layers to it, not something you can understand by reading the Wall Street Journal at home. A few relatives chimed in. Caleb is really making a name for himself, partnering with Vanguard. Leo, maybe you should just put that down. You wouldn't want to say the wrong thing and embarrass yourself. Chloe looked furious. She reached for the contract. Caleb, this is company business. Leo doesn't need to be involved. I held her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. Trust me. Then I looked up, my gaze calm and steady, and met Caleb's smug expression. I said one word. Poison. What? Caleb shot up from the couch, as if he'd been electrocuted. What the hell are you talking about, Miller? What's poison? I'm saying this contract is a trap. My voice wasn't loud, but in the quiet room, it landed like a boulder in a still pond. Everyone looked at me as if I had lost my mind. Ha ha ha. Caleb let out an exaggerated, barking laugh. A trap? Leo, do you even know what a contract is? Do you have any idea how big Vanguard Dynamics is? You think they'd waste their time setting a trap for us? Have you gone completely insane sitting at home all day? Chloe's father, Robert Davis, frowned deeply. Leo, don't speak about things you don't understand, he said, his voice a low rumble. Only my mother-in-law looked from me to Chloe, a worried expression on her face. Chloe was looking at me, tense. She didn't trust Caleb, but she had no reason to believe that I, with zero business experience, could spot a flaw in a contract from a corporate giant like Vanguard. I saw her journal refresh at lightning speed. What is Leo doing? Does he realize this will infuriate my father and Caleb? But he's so different today. His eyes are so certain, so powerful. Could he have really seen something I missed? No, that's impossible. I reviewed this contract myself. The legal team went over it 3 times. It's ironclad. Reading her thoughts, I knew words weren't enough. I flipped the contract open to page 15, section 3 of the appendix. It was a dense block of legalese, the kind of text designed to make your eyes glaze over. Caleb, look here. I pointed to a specific line. The second party, Davis Holdings, agrees to pay the full performance bond of $80 million prior to project commencement. In the event of project termination due to the fault of the first party, Vanguard Dynamics, the first party shall refund the bond within 3 business days and pay a penalty of 10%. Looks fair, right? Generous, even. Caleb snorted. Of course it is. I fought hard for that clause. Did you? I gave a cold smile. Now let's look at this one. Addendum 7, the definition of force majeure. I flipped to the very last page, pointing to a line of text in a font so small it was barely legible. It says right here that force majeure events include, but are not limited to, project termination resulting from internal strategic readjustments or core technology path alterations within Vanguard Dynamics. I tossed the contract back on the table. My voice was steady, every word clear. Translated, that means Vanguard can terminate this project at any time, for any internal reason they invent. And because it falls under force majeure, not only do they not have to pay a penalty, they can legally hold our $80 million bond until their so-called readjustment is complete. And when will that be? A year? 2? 10? They hold all the cards. An $80 million cash flow freeze is enough to bankrupt any company in an expansion phase. I looked at Caleb, whose face had gone deathly pale. So, Caleb, I asked, my voice dangerously soft, is this the great deal you brought home? The living room was utterly silent. Everyone was staring at me, dumbfounded, as if they were seeing me for the very first time. Caleb's lips trembled, but no words came out. My father-in-law's expression shifted from anger to pure shock. He snatched the contract, put on his reading glasses, and stared at the lines I had pointed out. And Chloe, she was looking at me with an expression I had never seen before. Awe, confusion, and a strange, brilliant light in her eyes. I glanced at her journal. It contained a single, short line, a thunderclap that echoed in my own mind. Who? Who is he? Impossible. It's impossible. Caleb slumped onto the sofa, utterly defeated, muttering the words over and over. The crowning achievement he'd been so proud of had been publicly shredded into a family-destroying scandal. My father-in-law, Robert, was shaking. After reading the clauses several times, his face was darker than night. He suddenly hurled the contract at Caleb's head. You imbecile! You have disgraced this entire family. The room erupted into chaos. No one was paying attention to me anymore. I quietly took Chloe's hand and led her out of the war zone. We walked out into the courtyard, the evening breeze cool against our skin. Chloe was silent, letting me lead her. I could feel the clammy dampness of her palm. I stopped and turned to face her. In the moonlight, her face was half in shadow, half bathed in a soft, ethereal glow, making her expression unreadable. You? She finally spoke, her voice hoarse. How did you know? I couldn't tell her I was from the future. I looked into her eyes, the carefully prepared excuse dying on my lips. I thought of the journal. With her, I didn't need a lie. I guessed, I said. Chloe stared at me. Do you think I'm an idiot? Her voice turned cold again. No, it's the truth, I said, my tone deadly serious. I just figured there's no such thing as a free lunch. Why would a giant like Vanguard give us such a profitable deal? It felt wrong. So I assumed there was a trap, and I just looked until I found it. Chloe studied my face for a long time, searching for any sign of deception. Her journal flickered to life. Is he lying? But he seems so sincere. He's not avoiding my eyes. Did he really just figure it out? That would require an incredible level of business acumen and logic. He was never like this before. Regardless, he saved the company tonight. And he stood up for me. The way he stood there, shielding me from everyone. It was actually very attractive. Reading her thoughts, I felt a weight lift from my chest. She believed me. Or at least, she wanted to. Come on, I said, gently ruffling her hair. Let's go home. Her body stiffened at the touch, but this time, she didn't pull away. The drive back to the city was quiet. Just as we were pulling into our building's garage, Chloe spoke. Leo. Yeah. Thank you. We're married, I said, glancing over at her. You don't need to thank me. Chloe didn't reply, just turned her head to look out the window, but in the reflection, I could see the corner of her mouth curve into a tiny, almost imperceptible smile. The next morning, the vibration of my phone woke me. It was a text from my bank. A direct deposit of $10 million has been made to your checking account, ending in XXXX. $10 million? I shot upright in bed, instantly awake. Was this from Chloe? Just then, the bedroom door opened and she walked in, already dressed for work. Did you get the money? She asked, her tone as casual as if she were asking if I'd had breakfast. What is this for? You said you were looking into projects, that you wanted to help take the pressure off me. She walked to the side of the bed and looked down at me. Consider it seed money. Do whatever you want with it. You don't have to report to me. If you make a profit, it's yours. If you lose it, she paused, a flicker of some unreadable emotion in her eyes. It's on me. Without another word, she turned and left. I stared at her retreating back, a complex mix of emotions churning inside me. I knew this money wasn't just seed money. It was a reward for last night. More than that, it was a gesture of trust, a trust that was long overdue. I looked at the journal. 10 million should be enough, right? He's so capable. He shouldn't be wasting away at home. Will giving him money directly hurt his pride? I don't know how else to support him. What if he loses it all? Okay, I'll have my assistant keep an eye on things. If his venture looks risky, I'll secretly cover the losses. I can't let him fail. This incredible, foolish woman. I picked up my phone and sent her a message. Got the money. Thanks, honey. I'll have a surprise for you when you get home. A moment later, she replied with a single word. Whatever. But I could clearly see the journal next to her, where a single line of text was bouncing with joy. He called me honey again, and he's planning a surprise. I wonder what it is. I smiled and threw back the covers. $10 million. And a brain full of the next decade's market trends. Just wait, Chloe. Soon, I'll be standing right beside you and equal. I'll build an empire for you, and you'll never have to hide behind that mask of ice again. The following week was a strange and wonderful honeymoon period for us. Though she was still the powerful, aloof CEO at the office, at home, she was noticeably softer. She allowed small intimacies, holding hands, hugs. When I stole a kiss on her cheek, she would just blush and glare at me before pretending nothing had happened. Meanwhile, I used the 10 million and my knowledge of the future to make my move. I didn't go for some flashy tech or finance venture. Instead, I quietly acquired a food processing plant on the verge of bankruptcy. I knew that in less than 6 months, a massive food safety scandal would rock the country. And this specific plant owned the patent for a unique, non-chemical food preservation technology that would become the hottest commodity on the market. I threw myself into renovating the factory and upgrading the tech, working around the clock. Chloe saw it all, but said nothing. Her journal, however, revealed her mix of worry and support. What on earth is he doing? A failing food plant? What future is there in that? Oh well, as long as he's happy. The 10 million was for him to play with anyway. If he loses it, I'll just give him another 100 million. He's been coming home so late, smelling like grease and machinery. He looks exhausted. I feel bad for him. Maybe I'll make him some soup tonight. This woman, in her head, she was criticizing my business sense, while in reality, she was in the kitchen, making me homemade chicken soup. That night, I came home, bone-tired, and was hit with the rich aroma the moment I walked in the door. Chloe was sitting at the table with a steaming bowl in front of her. When she saw me, she stood up immediately. You're home. Go wash up. The soup's getting cold. A warmth spread through my chest. I walked up behind her and wrapped my arms around her waist. You're the best, honey. Her body tensed for a second, then relaxed into my embrace. The journal. He's hugging me. Does he like the food I make for him? Yes. Maybe I should learn some more recipes. The comfortable, domestic moment was perfect until the doorbell rang. Chloe frowned and went to get the door. Standing on our doorstep was a man in a tailored suit, holding a massive bouquet of vibrant, dyed blue roses. A handsome, polished smile was fixed on his face. Ethan Cole. My blood ran cold. Chloe's old friend from business school. In my last life, he was the man who relentlessly pursued her, the snake who ultimately drove the final wedge into our broken marriage. What was he doing here? Chloe, long time no see. Ethan's gaze slid past her to me, his smile taking on a condescending edge. Aren't you going to introduce me? Chloe's face hardened. Ethan, what are you doing here? I just moved back to Chicago. A friend mentioned you lived in this building, so I thought I'd stop by, he said, his tone overly familiar. I'm having a welcome back party and wanted to invite you personally. He started to hand her the flowers. I stepped forward, smoothly wrapping an arm around Chloe's waist and pulling her against my side. I gave Ethan my most welcoming smile. Hi, I'm Leo Miller, Chloe's husband, I said, taking the bouquet from his hand. Thanks for the thought, Mr. Cole, but my wife is allergic to pollen. We appreciate the gesture, though. Then, right in front of him, I casually dropped the entire expensive bouquet into the trash can by the door. Ethan's smile froze on his face. Chloe just stared at me, her expression unreadable. Her journal popped into view. Leo, Is he standing up for me? How did he know I was allergic to pollen? I'd almost forgotten myself. His arm around my waist feels so possessive. Why am I not bothered by it all? Ethan recovered quickly, his eyes now holding a glint of challenge. Mr. Miller, a pleasure. I had no idea Chloe got married without telling any of her old friends, he said, the insinuation hanging in the air. Then again, it's rare to find a man so willing to be a stay-at-home husband these days. He might as well have had freeloader tattooed on his forehead. The old me would have decked him. The new me just smiled. I'm the luckiest man in the world to be married to a woman like Chloe. As for my career, you don't need to worry about it, I said, tightening my arm around her and placing a soft kiss on her temple. We won't bore you with the details of our private life. It's getting late, Mr. Cole. I'm sure you can see yourself out. My declaration of ownership and my polite, dismissive tone wiped the smile right off Ethan's face. He stared at me, his eyes like a predator's. After a long moment, he laughed, a cold, humorless sound. Right. Very good, he said. Then his gaze shifted to Chloe. Chloe, the party is Friday night. I do hope you'll come. Everyone who's anyone in Chicago will be there. I can't imagine the CEO of Davis Holdings would miss it. He gave me one last, deep look, then turned and walked away. The first shot in a new war had just been fired. After Ethan left, the air in the apartment felt heavy. Chloe was looking at me, seeming to want to say something. The journal, that was so badass of Leo, just tossing Ethan's flowers in the trash. But was that a mistake? Ethan's family is very influential in this city. Should I go to the party on Friday? If I go, I'll have to deal with Ethan. If I don't, it will look like Davis Holdings is afraid of him. Seeing her internal conflict, I made the decision for her. The party on Friday. I'm going with you. Chloe looked up, surprised. You? What? Worried I'll embarrass you. I raised an eyebrow. That's not what I mean. She said quickly. It's just, you've never liked those kinds of events. That was then, I said, cupping her face in my hands. This is now. From now on, any event where another man might try to hit on my wife is an event I'll be at. I'm your husband. It's my right and my duty. Chloe's face flushed a deep red. The journal, he said. He's my husband. He has a point. I can't really argue with that. I'm kind of looking forward to Friday now. Friday night, the Peninsula, Chicago. Ethan Cole's party was as extravagant as promised, a gathering of the city's elite. The moment Chloe and I walked in, all eyes were on us. Chloe was stunning in a black evening gown, an untouchable, elegant vision. I, on the other hand, was in a simple, well-tailored but unremarkable suit, looking completely out of place beside her. The whispers started immediately. Is that Chloe Davis's husband? He looks so average. I heard he does nothing, just lives off her money. What does she see in him? Such a waste. Chloe's hand tightened in mine. I could feel her tense up. I leaned in close, my lips brushing her ear. Ignore them. They're just bored people with nothing better to do. My warm breath on her skin made her shiver slightly. The journal, he's so close. He doesn't seem to care what anyone thinks. I wish I had that kind of confidence. With him here, I don't feel as nervous. Just then, Ethan approached, a glass of wine in his hand, a crowd of admirers orbiting him. Chloe, you made it. You are, without a doubt, the most beautiful woman here tonight, he said, his eyes fixed on her, completely ignoring my existence. You're too kind, Ethan, Chloe replied coolly, subtly leaning closer to me. A shadow passed over Ethan's face before his smile returned. He raised his glass. Chloe, it's been too long. A toast. He was holding red wine, but he offered Chloe a glass of champagne. I remembered, in my past life, at this very party, Chloe drank the champagne Ethan gave her and broke out in a terrible rash, forcing us to rush to the hospital. I found out later that she had a rare allergy to a specific artificial sweetener, one that happened to be in that champagne. Ethan was a bastard then, and he was a bastard now. Just as Chloe reached for the glass, I intercepted it. Sorry about that, Cole, I said with a smile. My wife's a lightweight. I'll take this one for her. Without waiting for a reply, I downed the entire glass in one go. The entire group fell silent. Ethan's face was a mask of fury. Chloe stared at me, shocked. Her journal was a series of question marks. Why did he do that? Is he protecting me? But I can hold my liquor just fine. I set the empty glass down and looked at Ethan, my smile never wavering. Good stuff. But next time you offer my wife a drink, make it wine. She's a bit particular. She doesn't like things with too many extra ingredients. I put a slight emphasis on the word ingredients. Ethan's eyes narrowed. He understood my meaning. His carefully laid trap foiled again. You're very protective of your wife, Miller, he bit out. Of course, I said, pulling Chloe tighter against my side, tucking her fully into my space. She's my wife. If I don't look out for her, who will? The onlookers watched our intimate display, then glanced at Ethan's thunderous expression, their eyes full of amusement. Round 2. My win. Before I could get too cocky, however, Chloe pinched me hard on my side. I looked down. She was glaring at me, a hint of flustered anger in her eyes. The journal. This jerk. Everyone is watching. Does he have to hold me so tight? But when he said, she's my wife. If I don't look out for her, who will? It was so hot. My heart is racing and my face is on fire. Looking at her adorable, conflicted face, I couldn't help but laugh quietly. It looked like the Ice Queen's final thaw was just around the corner. On the drive home, Chloe was unusually quiet. I could sense a deep melancholy had settled over her. A quick glance at the journal told me why. Why would Ethan do that tonight? Just to embarrass me? He's still the same. He'll do anything to get what he wants. Just like my father. Are all men like that? Is it always about power and personal gain? Leo, is he different? Reading the word father made my stomach drop. I knew Chloe's relationship with her father, Robert Davis, was strained. He was a titan of industry, but he and Catherine were estranged. Chloe had grown up with her mother and seemed to harbor a deep resentment for him. I never knew the details. Now I understood. The wound was far deeper than I'd imagined. It had poisoned her ability to trust, forming the very foundation of her icy fortress. When we got home, Chloe shut herself in her study. I didn't follow. Instead, I went to the kitchen and made her a warm mug of spiced milk with honey and cinnamon, something my own mother used to make me when I couldn't sleep. When I knocked on her study door, she was sitting by the floor-to-ceiling window, staring out at the glittering Chicago skyline. Her silhouette looked terribly lonely in the pale moonlight. Here, I said, holding out the mug. She didn't take it. I'm not hungry. It's not for hunger, I said, pressing the warm mug into her hands. It's to help you relax. I know you're upset. Chloe flinched, looking up at me in surprise. You. Don't ask me how I know. I cut her off, sitting down beside her. I just feel it. I tapped my chest. She fell silent, looking down and taking a small sip. The warmth seemed to seep into her. My father, she said suddenly, her voice so soft it was almost a whisper, as if telling someone else's story. When I was 10, he wanted to secure a deal. So he conspired with my mother's best friend, my godmother, to swindle my grandfather out of his life savings. My grandfather got sick from the stress and passed away not long after. My mother never forgave him. After that, he stopped being a father to me. He was just a stranger I was related to. I've never understood it. Is profit really more important than family, than love, than friendship? She looked up at me, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. Leo, would you ever betray me for personal gain? This was the first time she had ever shown me the deepest, most vulnerable part of herself. I didn't answer right away. I took the mug from her hands, set it aside, and pulled her into my arms, holding her tight. Chloe, listen to me, I said, my voice firm and absolute. There are two things in this world I will never betray. One is my country. The other is you. To me, you're not a business deal or a duty or contract. You're Chloe Miller, my wife. The person I want to spend the rest of my life protecting. I was a terrible husband before, but from this moment on, I will prove it to you. Every single day, my words were a warm current that shattered her final defenses. Her body began to tremble in my arms, and all the fear and pain she had suppressed for so long finally broke free. She buried her face in my chest, and I felt the dampness of her tears through my shirt as she began to sob, quietly and brokenly. It was the first time I had ever seen her cry. It wasn't loud or dramatic, but it was enough to break my heart. I said nothing more. I just held her, stroking her back, comforting her like a child who had been deeply hurt. I didn't know what the magic journal said in that moment. And for the first time, I didn't need to, because I could feel it, our hearts beating as one. After that night, everything changed. The invisible wall between us crumbled. Chloe started acting like a real partner, sharing little details from her day, complaining about annoying board members. She was still composed and elegant, but the ice was gone, replaced by a warmth that was just for me. I decided it was time to heal the last of her childhood wounds. After a few days of quiet research, I found a place Chloe's grandfather had loved most, the Chicago Botanic Garden. I learned that he had personally cultivated a grove of rare blue irises there, which bloomed only in the spring. After his death, Chloe had never gone back. That weekend, under the guise of a company retreat, I drove her out to the gardens. When she saw the familiar entrance, she froze. You'll see, I said with a mysterious smile, taking her hand. We walked down the stone path, sunlight dappling through the canopy of leaves. The air smelled of damp earth and fresh blossoms. Chloe was silent, but her journal was a flurry of activity. This is Grandpa's garden. Why would he bring me here? I haven't been here in more than a decade. I wonder if the irises are still there. After a 10-minute walk, we rounded a corner, and there it was. A breathtaking sea of blue. Thousands upon thousands of blue irises swayed gently in the breeze, a living carpet of fluttering wings. Chloe stopped dead in her tracks, staring, her eyes instantly filling with tears. There, still here, she whispered. I came up behind her and wrapped my arms around her, resting my chin on the top of her head. I asked around, I said softly, after your grandfather passed, the gardeners here kept caring for this grove. They said they were waiting for the owner to come back and see them bloom. That was the final straw. The tears she'd been holding back began to fall freely, silently tracing paths down her cheeks. She didn't make a sound, just wept in my arms, her body shaking with a decade's worth of grief. She was crying for her grandfather, for her lost childhood, and for this beautiful, impossible field of flowers that had waited for her all this time. I didn't try to comfort her with words. I just held her, letting her release it all. After a long time, her tears subsided. She turned in my arms and looked up at me, her eyes still watery, her voice raspy. Leo, thank you, silly girl, I said, gently wiping the tears from her cheeks. I told you, I'm going to fix everything that makes you sad. She gazed at me for a moment, then rose up on her toes and pressed her lips against mine. It was a soft, cool kiss, salty with the taste of her tears, and it was the single most precious gift I had ever received in 2 lifetimes. I was stunned into silence. She, on the other hand, pulled back immediately, her cheeks flushing, her eyes darting away, too shy to meet my gaze. I saw a new line appear in her journal. Oh my God, what did I just do? I just kissed him. So embarrassing. Does he think I'm being too forward? But I just couldn't help it. Seeing this adorable, flustered woman, I couldn't hold back any longer. I cupped the back of her head, tilted her face up to mine, and kissed her back properly this time. This was no gentle peck. This was a kiss filled with all the love and longing of 2 lifetimes. The sun was shining. The irises were in full bloom, and the Ice Queen was gone for good. Just as our relationship was finally blossoming, a storm was gathering on the horizon, aimed directly at Davis Holdings. One afternoon, Chloe called me, her voice frantic. Vanguard Dynamics just pulled out of every single one of our joint projects. They're citing internal strategic readjustment, and they've frozen $30 million of our performance bonds. My blood ran cold. It was happening. The exact same playbook as last time. But instead of targeting Caleb's foolish venture, Ethan was going after the entire company. This was his revenge. He was trying to bleed Davis Holdings dry. Stay calm. I told her, my own voice steady. You handle things at the office. Keep the executives in line. I'll figure out the money. You? She asked, hesitant. Leo, this is a lot of money. Trust me, I said, my tone leaving no room for argument. I hung up, my expression grim. Ethan Cole, Caleb Vance, did you really think I was the same helpless fool from our last life? Meanwhile, the boardroom at Davis Holdings was in chaos. What are we going to do? A $30 million hole in our cash flow? We don't have that kind of liquidity. The banks are suddenly tightening our credit lines. Vanguard has to be behind this. We're finished. We have a major payment due to our suppliers next week. If we miss it, the production lines will shut down. Caleb, sitting in a corner of the room, watched Chloe's predicament with undisguised glee. He'd been demoted after the contract fiasco and had been nursing a grudge ever since. He was thrilled to see Chloe fail. He discreetly sent a text to Ethan. "This is brilliant. Chloe is cornered. She won't last the week." Ethan replied almost immediately. "This is just the appetizer. She needs to learn what happens when you reject me. Do what I told you. Send me the internal financials. I'm going for the kill shot." Without a second thought, Caleb forwarded a file containing the company's most sensitive secrets. He had no idea he was hammering the final nail into his own family's coffin. Chloe sat at the head of the table, struggling to maintain her composure. She glanced at her phone. No word from Leo yet. Her journal was a mess of panicked, desperate thoughts. What do I do? What do I do? Leo said he had a plan, but $30 million? Where could he possibly get that kind of money? Do I have to call my father for help? No, I'll never give him the satisfaction. Leo, please hurry. I don't think I can hold on much longer. Just as she was about to give in to despair, the boardroom doors burst open. I walked in. Every head in the room swiveled towards me. "Leo, what are you doing here? This is a private meeting," Caleb shouted, jumping to his feet. I ignored him and walked straight to Chloe. I saw the dark circles under her eyes, and my heart ached. "I'm here," I said. Then I pulled a folder from my briefcase and slapped it on the polished mahogany table. "This is a cashier's check for $50 million. My voice wasn't loud, but it detonated in the silent room like a bomb. "Furthermore," I said, producing another document, "this is a strategic partnership agreement between my company, Pure Harvest Foods, and Vanguard Dynamics for a technology for market share exchange. As of today, my company and Vanguard are equal partners. I imagine Mr. Cole will be more than happy to do me a favor and immediately unfreeze all of Davis Holdings' assets." I let my gaze sweep across the stunned faces in the room, finally landing on Caleb, who had gone as white as a sheet. "Oh, and one more thing, Caleb. Those emails you just sent to Ethan Cole? My legal team has already forwarded them to the authorities as evidence of corporate espionage. If I'm not mistaken, the police should be here to escort you from the premises in about half an hour." As the words left my mouth, the room fell into a stunned, dead silence. Everyone was staring at me as if I'd grown a second head. $50 million, a strategic partnership with Vanguard, Caleb arrested for corporate espionage. Was this the same man they had all dismissed as a worthless freeloader? "No, you're lying," Caleb shrieked, his voice cracking. "You're a nobody. Where did you get $50 million? A deal with Vanguard? Who the hell do you think you are?" Right on cue, two uniformed police officers walked into the boardroom. "Mr. Caleb Vance? We're from the White-Collar Crime Division. You're under arrest for the theft and distribution of proprietary corporate intelligence. Please come with us." The cold click of handcuffs echoed in the silent room. Caleb collapsed like a marionette with its strings cut, still whispering, "Impossible." It was only then that everyone in the room finally believed me. Their expressions shifted from shock to something approaching awe. I paid them no mind. I just walked to Chloe's side and gently took her hand. It was ice cold and trembling. She looked up at me, her beautiful eyes filled with a whirlwind of emotions, shock, confusion, and a flicker of absolute reliance. Her journal was completely blank. Her mind, I knew, was simply too overloaded to form a coherent thought. "It's okay," I said softly. "It's all over." The crisis was averted. Caleb was gone. The board members were falling all over themselves to thank me. I dealt with them quickly and then led Chloe back to the quiet sanctuary of her office. As soon as I closed the door, she sagged against me as if all the strength had gone out of her. "Leo." She looked up at me, her voice hoarse. What? What just happened? Remember that food plan I bought?" I said, guiding her to the sofa. It owned the patent for a unique food preservation technology. Turns out, it was the missing piece in Vanguard's new global logistics strategy. I used the technology as my stake in a new joint venture with them. The $50 million was my first dividend payment, an advance on the valuation. I made it sound simple, but the truth was I hadn't slept for 3 days, locked in brutal negotiations with Vanguard's top lawyers to get the deal signed before Ethan could do any more damage. Chloe listened silently, her eyes never leaving my face. "So you knew, from the beginning, You knew what Ethan was planning. I did, I nodded. I know what he's like. And I knew Caleb was a weak link. I just set a trap and waited for them to walk into it. Chloe was quiet for a long time. When she finally looked up, her eyes were shining with a light I'd never seen before. It was a mixture of awe, adoration, and absolute trust. Leo, she said, it's light. You know everything. I smiled and gently tapped the tip of her nose. That's because I'm your husband. She didn't say anything else. She just wrapped her arms around my waist and held on tight, burying her face in my chest. I felt my shirt grow damp again, but these weren't tears of sorrow. They were tears of joy, of relief, of a woman who had been to the brink and been pulled back by the man she loved. Outside, the setting sun painted the sky in hues of gold and orange. I held the most precious thing in the world in my arms and felt a sense of peace settle over me. It's okay, Chloe. No one will ever hurt you again. I've got you. After the storm, life found a new, beautiful normal. Caleb was sentenced to prison for corporate espionage. Ethan Cole, having severely overplayed his hand, was censured by Vanguard's board and quietly faded into the background. And I, Leo Miller, went from kept man to the city's newest business prodigy, the legendary savior of Davis Holdings. No one looked down on me anymore. None of that mattered. All that mattered was Chloe. The last of her walls were gone. She became my wife, truly and completely. She would lean on me, tease me, and sometimes she'd even pout. She'd leave a light on for me when I worked late. She'd give me clumsy shoulder rubs when I was stressed. She shared every part of herself with me. The Ice Queen had melted into a warm, gentle river, and I was happily submerged in her. Today was our second anniversary. I didn't plan any grand gestures. I just cooked her favorite meal. We sat at the dining table, drinking wine and talking like any other married couple. Leo, Chloe said, her cheeks flushed from the wine, making her look even more beautiful. HM, do you remember our first anniversary? Of course, I chuckled. You had a cake in the back of the fridge and then insisted you'd bought it for yourself. Chloe's blush deepened. She glared at me playfully. How did you know that? I also know that you were thinking, how did he know the cake was there? Is he psychic? Chloe froze, her wine glass hovering halfway to her lips. You. Seeing her stunned expression, I decided it was time. I told her everything about the journal, about how I'd woken up that morning and seen it for the first time, about how I used it to understand her, to fix our broken relationship, to walk into her heart. She listened quietly, her expression shifting from shock to dawning realization to a hint of mischief. So, she said, biting her lip, the tips of her ears turning pink. You knew everything I was thinking? The whole time. I did. I nodded, taking her hand. Honey, I'm sorry. I invaded your privacy. Chloe was silent for a long, tense moment. I held my breath. Then, she burst out laughing, a bright, musical sound that filled the room. Leo Miller, you are such an idiot, she said, wiping a tear of laughter from the corner of her eye. What? I asked, confused. She leaned in close, her lips brushing my ear, and whispered something that made my world tilt on its axis. I've been able to see that you could see the journal since the second month. My brain shut down. What? I also know that every time you were secretly reading it, you had this ridiculous poker face on, she said, her eyes dancing with amusement. So what do you think? Am I a good actress? I stared at her, at the triumphant, impossibly clever smile on the face I knew better than my own. All this time, I thought I was the one with the superpower, the one in control. It turns out I was the one being played. She wasn't an ice queen. She was a sly fox hiding in plain sight. It took me a second to recover. Then I pulled her into my arms and kissed her deeply and thoroughly. Chloe Miller, I said against her lips, you're trouble. I learned from the best, she murmured. As we kissed, I glanced at the journal, still floating in the air beside us. I smiled and gave it a silent farewell. I didn't need it anymore. My girl had finally, completely opened her heart to me, and our story was just getting started. End.